I'm sorry, are we doing Bible studies in classrooms? No, we're not, right? So why is this a certain agenda being pushed into the classrooms? I'm here to bring awareness to the emails that had surfaced earlier this month. The one I find most disturbing of all is of a third grade teacher trying to talk about sex with 8-year-old students. These are 8-year-old children that she is trying to hold a sexual orientation class with. A parent shared their concern and their objection to it and pulled their kid out. And instead of this teacher being concerned of what she did wrong, she goes to a district employee and asks for ways of how she can continue to teach sexual orientation to her third grade class. You guys want us to believe that this isn't a propaganda, that no agenda is being held? This wasn't just any sexuality class. This was specifically designed 3 days a week. She taught LGBTQ curriculum in her class. It raises the question, how many of those students are excelling in that classroom? Is everybody in that class getting A's in math, English, grammar, social studies? That we can dedicate 3 days a week to teach 8-year-olds about sexual orientation? I don't care what kind of sex is being discussed. The word sexuality, nudity does not belong in the ears in a classroom of 8-year-old kids. And when a parent showed their concern, what does this teacher do? Completely disregards and goes behind the parent's back trying to find ways of how to continue these lesson plans. The level of disrespect that has been shown to Christian conservative parents is becoming very obvious. It's like all of a sudden, just because we don't fit the agenda, we don't fit within the parameters of the agenda that's being pushed, we're being disregarded and pushed to the side. We're not talking about having people excluded. We're talking about the level of uncomfortability that some parents are experiencing. And that's important. Because if you guys want to talk about including all, listening to all, every student matters, our kids matter too. And we don't want those subjects being taught to children who are just 8 years old. And the topics get worse and worse and the subjects get more detailed. And I'm sorry, are we doing Bible studies in classrooms? No, we're not, right? So why is this a certain agenda being pushed into the classrooms? But if we don't take a stand and we don't share our voice, they're just going to sweep this under the rug. Why should a parent overhear her 8-year-old kid being taught about sex?
Do you view democracy as an American value, something that's very important to the fabric of this country?
No. Where is democracy in the U.S. Constitution?
Oh, okay. So
No, hold on. Where is the word democracy?
I don't think the word democracy is in the Constitution.
So where is the word democracy in any of the founding fathers?
A lot of the founding fathers had extremely elitist viewpoints around who should...
Hold on. I just want to... You said the word democracy, so I want to get back to our roots.
Yes.
Where is democracy mentioned? In the Federalist Papers, the Constitution, or the Declaration?
I think it's good that this country has moved away from things that were explicitly believed by the founding fathers.
in the Federalist Papers, and it's mentioned negatively as a problem. So you ask me, is democracy a fundamental American value? I say no.
Okay.
Because I go back to our roots. And Hamilton, Madison, and Jay...
Oh, I know that Hamilton was anti-democracy.
Hold on,
these people thought that people should be owned as
I want to be clear. I
am
am pro-representative government, but I'm not pro-democracy. That's a big difference, and that distinction's important. But you asked very specifically about democracy, which is not an American value. It never has been and never should be, because what is democracy? Democracy is majority rule no matter what. That there's no provisions of checks and balances, no inalienable rights, no separation of powers, pure if the majority gets it, the majority wants it as quickly as possible.
I don't advocate pure democracy. I do understand that we live in a representative, we live in a republic,
and I understand these things. Representative government.
Okay.
And you might say I'm splitting hairs on words, but I'm not.
Well, just coming from a place where on some level we have a level of democracy in this country and people vote and it is part of their civic duty to vote.
Sure.
Yes. Do you not think it is in the greater interest of this country at large that its citizens are as educated as possible to therefore be able to participate in that system?
I think they should be as wise as possible, and I don't think that education and wisdom are the same thing.
Yeah,
in fact,
I understand.
I think college disincentivizes the cultivation of wisdom.
in the age where there is such a hypersaturation of, and we've seen this, like extremely polarizing, different, like people are getting their news from wildly different sources.
Yes.
People just don't interact with the other side at all. Do you think that being an autodidact in any sense of the term is going to give you a thorough and rigorous education if you are like so likely to end up sucked into these holes where you're never interacting with people who
that's not my only form of learning. I meet a lot of cool people. I learn from people like you and others. I mean, I'm listening when you're talking. It's not just a shtick. You haven't won me over on any of it, but you had an opportunity to. But I'm glad you attempted to. But yeah, I mean, you learn in other ways other than just sitting in a classroom, listening to a professor drone on for 90 minutes and pretending to read his book and paying $20,000 a semester to cheat on the exam at the end of the semester.
I think college is what you make of it. I
agree. So is life.
People are selling themselves short on their education if they don't.
You can listen to as many podcasts as you want. You can meet interesting people. And
academia does have like an actual level of like. You have to prove that you're worth your salt, at least to have peer-reviewed papers published, which you don't have to do to start a podcast.
If you get a PhD, yes, but hold on. So is your contention that I'm not informed or not worldly or not wise? I want to be clear.
I'm not making any claims about your specific level of being informed. I'm saying the general rhetoric on the right against education, against higher education specifically.
Why do you think it is? Is it because you think we hate smart people, or is it that there's something happening here that we really think is troubling?
I think it's much easier to control people who are less educated.
See, now you're a conspiracy theorist.
No matter what you say, no matter how carefully you craft your words, no matter how clear, calm, or compassionate you are, there are some people who are simply determined to never hear it. They are so determined to never hear it. So it's not to say that they cannot understand. No, it's simply that they refuse to understand. They refuse to listen. They simply refuse. Their minds are so closed. Their minds are made up. The truth, no matter how obvious, has no place to land in them. It has no place to land in them. It's not a failure of communication. It's simply a rejection of conviction. Rejecting conviction. These are the people who have chosen pride over humility. You see? Narrative over reality. Especially in today's world. And that's terrible, ladies and gentlemen. It's so frustrating, to be honest. Actually, heartbreaking. It's sad to watch, literally. It's sad to watch, but at some point you realize it's not your job to force them to listen. It's your job to speak truth faithfully. Yes, and let God deal with their hearts.
So, no, it's...
Anti-intellectualism is a hallmark of fascism.
Do you think we're against higher education because it largely has created an ungrateful, unprepared generation that goes into the American body politic and does not share the core American values of freedom of speech, gratitude for our founding, consent of the governed? In fact, it's hyper-radical. And it's against our traditions, our norms, and our customs, and it's created massive fissures. We call that the woke mind virus, if you will.
Okay, that makes...
It's not because people are easier to control. In fact, we love learning. I learn every day. In fact, that's why I'm pro Hillsdale College, where it's probably one of the hardest colleges in the country to get into and graduate from. The problem is that when you are learning largely trash and crap, and you're not going in the pursuit of truth, beauty, or goodness, and you're not trying to inculcate wisdom or good character...
There's no oversight on online political punditry to make sure that you're in pursuit of wisdom and goodness.
No, of course
you directly profit from propagating viewpoints that are more polarizing and that suck people deeper into more conspiratorial thinking.
Hold on. So what you're doing is you're actually insulting the audience, not me. Because the vast majority of this audience actually enjoys watching my videos, and they enjoy hearing from me.
I never said your audience didn't enjoy watching your videos.
Because you say I'm profiting. The way
you do profit, you financially, you make a ton of money from getting more clicks.
The audience rewards me because they find that I bring some value.
I don't
and that they
necessarily
learn something from me.
Whatever gets the most
the next
eyes
question.
on a specific...
But it's easy to attack me as exploitation. What I say is actually very popular and resonates with people.
My position currently, but it's open to change, is that I'm pro-choice up until the 20-week mark, where my understanding is the studies say that the subjective conscious experience is what I kind of value about life. And so I kind of draw the line right there, and then abortion's passed, then I would be in favor of outlawing.
Okay.
What's your position on that?
It's a reasonable question. Would you say we should stop abortions when brainwaves start?
Yeah. Well, I mean, if brainwaves are an indication of the subjective conscious experience, then I'd say yes.
Okay, so 6 weeks, not 20 weeks.
If that's when the mark is, and the parts of the brain are communicating with each other to deploy the subjective conscious, I'm fine with 6 weeks.
Okay, so are human beings more than brainwaves?
Are they more than brainwaves?
Are you more than just brainwaves?
No. I don't think so.
So you're nothing more than just brainwaves?
I don't think so, personally.
Okay.
I think that's the most important thing. Like, the example that I would give you, the example that I would give is a person in comatose, right, who's indefinitely in coma and is not going to wake up, is hooked on life support.
Right.
Arguably, they have the unique DNA, they have the heartbeat still going, connected to the ventilator. I don't know if you would agree with that, but arguably the most important part that we're looking at there is whether they're awake or not. If they're not going to wake up, I wouldn't consider it murder to kill that
People
person.
come out of comas all the time.
That's true. That's true.
If you want, you can come up in a sec. Yeah.
I would say that just because there's a temporary lapse in the communication between like the brain, or just because there's a temporary lapse in you still have the parts of the brain that are able to deploy the subjective conscious experience.
Can we come to some agreement? Heartbeat and brainwaves probably a good time to cut off abortion, because that's right around 6 to 8 weeks, right around there.
Sure. I'm not fine with that.
So you're like a radical right winger, man. So
I'm not like that's. I'm not like a. I don't want to be like
a hard time. You're coming here in good faith.
It's fine. Yeah, sure.
But at least you're looking at some sort of rational restriction, right? And
sure, of course. Yeah.
The radical left, they say no restrictions whatsoever. Just let the mother choose.
Yeah, I don't agree with that.
No. I'm not saying you do. But
no.
And it on its face, it doesn't make any sense, because if it's the mother's choice, always if the baby's completely viable, right, throughout the gestational period, even the third trimester, a third trimester baby at 28, 29, 30 weeks can survive outside of the womb. How is it any different than in the womb, right?
Sure,
and
of course,
a value of a baby does not change just because the size, level of development, environment, or degree of dependency that the baby has on the mother.
Yeah,
and so those of us that are pro-life, we articulate a position that is not always popular, but it's morally correct, which is that life begins at conception, which it begins when new DNA is formed, and you are not fully formed at that beginning, but that is when human life actually begins.
I don't mean this as a gotcha question, but it's actually genuinely
you can try your best.
Curiosity. No, it's not.
I've heard almost all of them.
Sure. Would you consider Plan B like murder? Because there's
it could be. So Plan B, we don't know if it actually is terminating a fertilized egg. Okay. So because Plan B could be an abortifacient, but it is taken as a precautionary potential abortifacient, right?
Sure.
So there's a difference between what is an at-home abortion, which is now widespread, where someone knows that they are currently in a gestational 39, 40-week development of a human being, whereas Plan B is like, I had unprotected sex, I'm going to take this just in case, right?
Okay.
And essentially what Plan B does is it nuclear bombs all the eggs, right? Okay. For that particular, and excuse the graphic nature of it, but that's what it does. So it depends on if the egg is actually fertilized or not, which is, I would never, encourage anyone to use Plan B, but it's a little more complicated than
I understand. And then my second question,
yes.
Another hypothetical situation that I've heard on a podcast. I know you've been on the Whatever podcast.
Yep. It's right down they film right down the street, by the way, in Santa Barbara.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I really like watching they have good content.
Yeah, it's not a great group of people, but yeah.
Oh, really? Why? Okay, well, I won't.
It's pretty self-evident, but yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, so there was a woman on there. Her name was Jasmine, and I thought she posed like a pretty interesting hypothetical where there's a burning building, right? And you have 10 fertilized embryos and 3 live babies, and it's burning, and you only have an option to choose one. Which one are you saving?
That's a tough question. I mean, first of all, it depends if the embryos will ever be used. That's the better question. So if you can guarantee the embryos will then be used into full fertilization, then to be consistent, you would have to save the 10 embryos. Okay. If they're fully fertilized and will be used, yes. But the 3 babies have already gone through the entire gestational period, survived potential miscarriages, other side of birth-related issues. But that's a fair and very good question that to be principled, you have to answer it a certain way.
This isn't just a political fight or a cultural disagreement. It's the battle between good and evil, light and darkness. It's a spiritual war that runs far deeper than what we see on the surface. It runs far deeper, ladies and gentlemen. Behind the noise, the headlines, and the chaos lies a fierce struggle for the souls of men. Literally, every lie whispered, every truth suppressed, and every value, turned upside down. It's all a part of a larger agenda. You see? Yes, it is. To draw people away from God and into deeper confusion. That's the aim, really. To cause rebellion and ultimately destruction. And that's sad. But light still shines in the darkness, and the truth of Christ still has the power to break chains. The truth of Christ still has the power to break chains. So, the battle isn't about winning arguments. That's not what this is about. It's about rescuing souls. Rescuing souls. The enemy is relentless, but so is our God. You see? And we must stand clothed with the armor of truth, knowing that eternity is at stake. And we wrestle not against flesh and blood, ladies and gentlemen, but against principalities, powers, spiritual wickedness in high places. Ephesians 6 from verse 12. Remember that scripture? This isn't just a cultural moment. It's a prophetic hour, literally. And every soul caught in the crossfire matters dearly to God. Yeah. So we are called not to be spectators, but to be literally soldiers. To be literally soldiers armored with the word of God, grounded in truth, and driven by love. Driven by love. The enemy seeks to devour, to divide, and to destroy. Yeah, that's what he wants to do. But Christ came to redeem, to restore, and to reign. And in the end, always know that light always wins. Light always wins. But until that day, ladies and gentlemen, we fight, not with hate, but with holy conviction, because this is a battle for the souls of man, and eternity hangs in the balance. Darkness is not merely the absence of light, it's an active force with devastating consequences. Devastating consequences. And when darkness takes hold in a person's heart and mind, it begins to unravel everything that is good, that is true, and that is life-giving. You see, the consequences of this spiritual darkness are profound and far-reaching. They are far-reaching, touching every area of a person's life and extending beyond into the world around them. Ephesians tells us that those in darkness are separated from the life of God, and this separation is the greatest tragedy. Spiritual death, that's what it is. Alienation from the source of all life, love, and hope. Can you imagine how terrible that would be? Without God's presence, the soul grows cold and empty. Relationships breaks down. Communities fracture. There'll be chaos everywhere. Darkness breeds distraction. It manifests in anger, hatred, violence, and brokenness. When people walk in darkness, they often act out their fear, bitterness, or even selfishness. Yeah, so societies become fragmented, justice is perverted, and peace becomes elusive. The seed of darkness grows into the systems of oppression, injustice, and moral decay. You see? But the good news is this: the consequence of darkness is not the final. In other words, the light of Christ breaks through the darkness. Yes, it does. His love, the life of Christ, restores that which was broken. It does. It opens blind eyes. It frees the captives. Oh yes, the battle is fierce. The consequences real and painful, but in Christ there is always hope for redemption and in your life.